Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Double Your Business Show on Blab, the Healthy Family, Healthy Business Show. Or no, Healthy Business, Healthy Family. You know, I always mix that up, and I know that's really funny if you've been listening to us on iTunes, that I say it a different way almost every time. But I think it does go hand in hand that you can have a healthy family or healthy business, and you have to have kind of both for they both to work. But I'm happy that you've joined us here today for today's show. We're going to get into that in just a second. But if this is your first time listening to us or joining us on Blab, then I just let you know a little bit about me. My name is Leslie Hassler. We have Amy Blesser, who's my VA, who's also on the line with us. And you'll hear from her during the show as well. But I own Your Biz RULES, which is a business coaching firm, and I really specialize working with women entrepreneurs. And what we do is pretty cool. I think we make being in business worth it. It's probably the simplest way to put it, but it is about helping you to be the best in your business and helping your business really to be the best to fuel all the things that you went into business for in the first place. So it's really easy to get sidetracked. It's really easy to not be rewarded in your business. And it's really easy to get into too much work and not enough time. So we help kind of right those wrongs, if you will, in a way that gives you your life and your business back as quickly as possible. So that's one reason why I do this show. You know, I was just writing our newsletter today that I sent over to Amy on Monday. Hello, I got it done on Monday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I was talking about this mission I have to really help 10,000 business owners in their business to grow their business. And that's one reason why I share so much freaking free content. I give it away. I am telling you what I tell my clients in the hopes that if it is the one thing you need to hear, then hopefully you've got it. And you don't have a reason to hold you back. So that's why we do what we do. If you need us, want to have us share this message on your own platform or with an organization, please reach out. I'd love to do that. I always, I do a lot of speaking, a lot of free giving as it is. Okay, I feel like I'm babbling today. Amy's laughing at me.
No.
Well, today we're really talking about why your business needs you to be a little crazy. And I love this term because I know in business it's really easy sometimes for other people to say, you're crazy. You think you're going to do that? Whatever. That's not going to work. You know, you do have moments in your business where you're like, am I the only one that thinks that this will work and that it will go? But there's a little bit more to just being crazy. And this comes straight out of one of the 5 rules of growth that I share. It's one of my speaking topics, and it's called I call it kind of the Albert Einstein rule. It's, execute, examine and evaluate. And the execute, examine, and evaluate sounds just a little boring. I like to consider it the Albert Einstein rule because you have to be a little bit of a mad scientist in business. If you don't adopt this kind of mad scientist ideal when it comes to growing your business, then you tend to get stuck in this kind of status quo. So the problem that I see in business and something that keeps people where they are. So if you're just starting out and you're not really moving forward, or if you've been in business for a while and you've been successful, but you can't get that next layer of growth, this is probably one of those problems that you may not realize you have in your business. And that is you've lost the ability to try something new. You've lost the ability to kind of put things up to the spaghetti test and see if they'll stick in a business. You're probably relying too much on what got you where you are. I talk about that concept of what got you here won't necessarily get you to the next level. And so I see this kind of perfectionist tendency wanting to come. We don't like the concept of failing. We don't like the concept of not being a success right out of the gate. And part of the reasons that we do that is that I think we see all these stories out there of business success, and we look at them through some tainted glasses. So I have a quote that I love. It says, comparison is the thief of joy. And that really is about when you're comparing somebody else's middle or end to maybe your beginning or middle, and you're not taking into consideration what it took to get them there, what it took to really help them be that success in their business. And the biggest thing, I think so many business owners are afraid to fail. Not that I look forward to failing. Amy, do you put failing up on? She's saying no. Maybe we should have, our challenge of how are we going to fail today? And I've got a story about that here in a minute. But, we look at so many of these big businesses and don't understand that at one point in time, they would have been deemed crazy or a failure in their business. And I wanted to give you a couple of just people you would know, so to speak, examples. So first of all is Starbucks. Okay, Starbucks coffee has been around for a while. I mean, it's pretty much on, if you have the Starbucks app on your phone, you can pay for your coffee before you even get there and you get priority,
Wow.
It's kind of like our modern day Cheers, right? We don't necessarily go to bars where they know our names, but we sure go to Starbucks where they know our name, don't we? Are you a big Starbucks drinker, Amy?
No, I'm not, but
No?
but they're really quite the operation, and it's amazing to watch everything that they roll out and all the new technology that they use to support their customers.
And nowadays you actually could go up and get there's Starbucks bars. I don't think we have one in Dallas. If we do, I'm not sure where it is. But Starbucks is such a fixture. It's almost on every corner. I know in our area, because we have a lady that works in sales and marketing for Starbucks here in Dallas, there was one store that was so bad you couldn't get a parking spot. And it was so bad that the line wrapped around this parking spot. And even if you got a parking spot, you couldn't get out because of the drive-through line. I mean, that's how crazy that one store was. So they opened up 2 more within a half-mile radius just to bleed the traffic off of that one location, So here's Starbucks. It's successful, right? I mean, net revenue, I looked it up. Net revenue in 2015, 19.16. I mean, who cares about the 16 if it's in the billions? $19 billion in revenue last year. That's huge. They got turned down 242 times by banks. So when the idea for Starbucks was being shopped, when he was looking for money to be able to start this business, he failed. He had failed. He had 242 people tell him that he was cuckoo, that he was nuts, that this business would never work. It would not take off. He didn't know what he was doing. 242 people. That's pretty huge. Next one, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Amy, do you have this book?
I have several of them, and for years I've read the kids' stories, or at least the youngest one, stories from the books.
What's your favorite story? Do you know? Do you have one?
Oh, gosh. No, there's so many. I mean, because we also have, the Chicken Soup for the dog lover's soul, and preteens and kids, and I've got them all. So we've read so many of them.
It's a fixture, right? And when somebody says Chicken Soup for the Soul, people know what that is. Mm-hmm. And this one was interesting because they were talking about product expansion. There was an article talking about product expansion and how Chicken Soup for the Soul really was one of those. It was a product that turned into a brand. It was a book that turned into a brand, and that they've been one of the few companies to be able to make that kind of a leap and really do a lot of vertical product placement, different kinds of product development. Well, if you think about it, Chicken Soup for the Soul is that brand that we know. When somebody says that, it automatically elicits a visceral response. It doesn't me. I don't know about for you, Amy, but
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Oh, definitely, because it is something that has been a part of bedtime.
Part of your life. So last year, they're not as big as Starbucks, unfortunately. Only $2 billion. Only $2 billion last year.
Only.
I'll take it. In 100 countries, I can't speak. In 100 companies, Chicken Soup for the Soul turned down 140 times. 140 publishers said no.
Wow.
140. I don't know if I'd have the wherewithal to do 5, honestly. 140. Howdy, Christopher. We're just talking about some ways that you need to be a little crazy in business. And we're going through some epic fails out there. So I shared Starbucks. You know, Starbucks got turned down 242 times from banks. And they're a $19 billion, I'm sorry, I should not shortchange them and say million, $1 billion company. Just talked about Chicken Soup for the Soul, turned down 140 times from publishers, right? $2 billion business. I love this quote. You know, Richard Branson is somebody that so many people admire. You think you've heard of Starbucks before? Exactly. You know, Richard Branson is somebody that so many people admire out there. We know that he's had just as many ups as he's had downs, right? People pay out the wazoo just to be near this man, to hear him, to be on his island, to go to the retreats, to be revitalized for their own businesses. And I love this comment because it's right up my alley. Richard Branson says, business opportunities are like buses. There's always another one coming. And he talks about the fact that he and his team have made some utter failures, have made some mistakes and missteps. But even when they have to shut a business down, they still look at it as an opportunity. Because if they're not doing this, they can go do something else. And they go out and they search the opportunities. So that I thought that was really interesting. And here's what's really funny to me. We have a lot more guy examples. Gentlemen out there that are willing to fail than we had women examples. So obviously we can think of Oprah. I mean, she's had her ups and downs, right? Professionally, personally, the whole 9 yards. But I thought I'd talk about Sarah Blakely. Now, guys, you may not have a clue who Sarah Blakely is. Your wives, your girlfriends do. All right. So she's invented Spanx and, you know, been on the cover of Forbes, I believe, recently. She really talks about this concept of failing, because failing in her family was not a bad thing. In fact, there's a quote that she's talked about, and I've read this story a couple different times in different publications, but her father actually encouraged her and her brother to fail. So he asked at the dinner table, how did you fail today? I want to hear your failure story, because he really wanted them to learn. So it got to be a game that if they didn't have something to fail at for the day, he was like, well, man, what'd you do with your day? Boring as all get out. You didn't learn anything today, did you? And she talks about, there's one story where she does talk about an audition, and she came home and she said, what this did is it really programmed in their brain that failing wasn't a bad thing. And so she said she tried out for a play and she was horrible at it. She actually had more fun telling her father that she got turned down for the play and how bad she was at it than anything else. Okay. This woman, here's what's really interesting. This is a bootstrap company. This company was built on bootstraps, zero debt. It's 100%, or at least it was the last information that I could find, 100% privately owned business. Enterprise, it's enterprise. So, when we see this, I think when instead of always just seeing all the successes, I think it's just as important to read their growth story, how they got here, how many years they had to struggle. I was sitting down for a client today with a publisher, and she showed me her growth numbers. And always it's a sales presentation. Come on, nobody's going to show a downward cycle. I get that. So I'm looking at her up cycle, and I was just, yay, it was up, but what was more interesting to me, it was flat for 5 years. I was like, look at that. Flat for 5, skyrocketing for 5. Interesting. That's an interesting thing to see, is you don't always see somebody's growth story in there. And if you looked at Starbucks, the same thing, flatline. Flatline growth for a long time, and then whoomp, skyrocket. So there's something that they're doing during these 5 years. Okay. And that concept it's called testing and measuring. It's being that Albert Einstein in their business. They're not afraid to try because they're not afraid of failing. That doesn't mean you have to go jumping off a cliff without without a backpack or a parachute. You need to, be prepared and take some calculated risks, but you do have to incorporate this kind of Kaizen philosophy into your business. So, Amy, why don't we do a couple of shout outs here, and then I'm going to talk about some of these comments we see coming in.
Sure, absolutely. So I want to welcome back Christopher. Oh, he gave us the spelling last week. Is it Shulo?
Yes, I think that's right, Shulo.
I want to welcome you back and thank you for coming. I also want to encourage the folks who are not live with us, but who are watching to jump on over and join us live. We've got a bunch of you there. So thank you so much for coming, and come on over and join Leslie live so you can ask some questions and interact.
Yeah, we have fun. That's when we have fun. So as always, guys, I love to share a lot of the learnings that we have in the real world and business, and I see in my own businesses and with my clients. But one of the great tools that I have put together is called the Marketing Quick Fix. And it really starts off with just 87 different ways that you could be marketing your business. And that's great because we could all use the ideas, but here's what makes it a little bit special is I take it one step further. I'm not just giving you a list. I'm kind of giving you some of the strategy behind when I use what for clients and when I will recommend a tactic or a strategy for a client and when I won't. And a lot of that has to do about when you need to see the results. So I'm Blab here with the Double Your Business in 90 days. Well, guess what? Not everything doubles your business in 90 days. There's stuff that works and there's stuff that won't work in 90 days. Well, that's what this tool does, is it helps show you what will work for your budget and for how quickly you need the results. So that's just the Marketing Quick Fix. And Amy, I know we'll put the link in the chat box, but if you're just listening to the recording, it's yourbizrules.com/marketing quick fix. So Christopher over here says, I hope this doesn't sound sexist, but I feel that men are conditioned from early not to let rejection bother them. No, I don't think it's sexist at all, Christopher. I think it's the truth. I think having kids has been really interesting. And I know Amy has boys and girls, and I just have boys. So maybe I can see the polarizing opposites of it. But I don't know that I would be any different with my girls. If I had girls, I'd be like, brush yourself off, pick yourself up, dust it off, move on, get back up, all of these things. I never wanted to condition my kids to cry unless they needed to. And meaning like, you fell down, you scraped your knee. Yeah, it hurts. Dust yourself off, brush yourself off. Let's go. You're bleeding. Let's take care of it. I know it hurts. I'm going to be sympathetic, but I'm not going to encourage the emotion around it because sometimes that emotion's just not valid. You break your arm like Edmund did last year. All right, you can cry. Not a problem with that. I don't want to sound heartless, but I do think it's sometimes as we are children and with our children, we're conditioning them to either be resilient or to crumble. And so I really want to make sure that, I've got resiliency in my kids because the world isn't the easiest place all the time. And I want them to be able to bounce back. Amy, do you see the difference like between boys and girls? Just that conditioning of whether or not you should let rejection bother you or how that works?
I'm not sure I see conditioning per se, but definitely vastly different reactions.
It's really interesting. So yes, I do think that men and women have learned different ways, in your family and your environment, like Sarah Blakely was, her family promoted sharing of failures so that there wasn't a fear of failing. And that's not always the case in every family. So, but the one thing I will say is you can change your reaction to how things work. You have that backstory about what it is. You can change that. You have to work on it. It's not going to happen overnight, but you can shift it. And that's kind of leads right into the next kind of talking point, I suppose, where we're talking about, okay, so how do we change this up? And how do we use that kind of Kaizen approach to your business? So Kaizen, it's that kind of perpetual improvement, getting the most out of yourself, efficiency kind of thing. Well, I liken business, and I've said this time and time again, that there's probably no bigger on-the-job learning ground like there is being in business. Most everything that you can do, while you can have good expertise at what you do and like skill wise, you can, maybe be a good leader coming into it. But most of small business is all about learning. It's all about figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that ever changes. Amy, how long have you been in business?
Since me.
Okay, so just a year less than me. So, we're 17 years combined experience right here. And I will say every year I learn something new about being in business. And I don't think you get to I don't know that you ever get to a been there, done that, unless you're Warren Buffett or, Richard Branson. And these guys, they're in their 50s, 60s and much later than that kind of thing. So I think what we need to get to in business is get away from this mindset that business has to be perfect, that it is, and look at more as a training ground. Now you want to, be good at what you do, make money and succeed. But you always, I think, have to be looking for this constant improvement. Jim Collins wrote 2 books. Most people know Good to Great. The second follow-up book was Great by Choice. It's one of my all-time favorites. I talk about it a lot. But there was this one, the second book of Great by Choice says, okay, so let's say you are that good company. How do you become great? What do you have to do? What are your principles, philosophies? What does the CEO need? All of these things into it. But there was this one concept about innovation and the key role that innovation plays in the growth and strength of a company. And time after time after time, Jim Collins shows and shares with you when a company stops to innovate, what happens. When they say we've reached our pinnacle, what happens to that company? Case in point, Kodak. Kodak did not take the digital revolution seriously at all. It was a passing fad. Okay, they were good. They were the king of the hill, and they felt like they would be there. The result, we know, right? We know where Kodak is. It's still here, but it's nothing like it was. Okay, time and time again, when innovation falls by the wayside, so will your business. It might be a slow decline, but it won't be the glory of it. So if you think about this, now we're not major businesses here. We're not the GEs, we're not the Kodaks of the world, and that's okay. But if you think about how can you take that into your own business and use it to become a great small business. I want to be a great, great small business. I don't want to be a great Fortune 500. Not my goal. Not what I'm in it for. But if you look at this, how do you take that internal? And that's kind of where that Kaizen, for me, give you a parallel kind of comes in, is we got to change our mindset around failing. We need a little more R&D, research and development. I've also heard it as rob and duplicate, which maybe don't rob, but, take this kind of constant learning and bring it into the business. And so if you look at it as that we are trying to, we have a good idea, we have a good focus, we know who we're talking to, but maybe we need to do our marketing message. Maybe we need to test and measure this element. Let me give you another kind of case study here. So Brad Sugars, one of my mentors, owns Action Coach International, which was the coaching organization that I went to in my first business, taught me a lot. But there was this one story he tells of creating a radio ad for organic dog food in Australia. Okay. Pretty specific idea. What they knew about their clients is that if a client purchased once, they tend to stay with them for like 3 years. Okay, that's a long time in consumer product goods from a purchase cycle. That's a really long time. They also knew that once a person had been with them for like 6 months, they became an excellent referral source. And now they had a program to maximize that, but this is what they knew about their clients. So it's not cheap dog food. It's like, I don't know, $90, $100 a month, not cheap dog food. So they spent and started creating radio ads, and they tested radio ads, and they tested. In fact, they tested 287 different radio ads. That's a lot, before they found the magic one. Now, the magic one was like printing money. Now, you may not have the budget to put out 287 radio commercials, but there's a way you can use it in your business. I love to test and measure when I go networking. And I have one networking group that is kind of like my family. And I go as much as I can. And I throw stuff up on the wall with them all day long. All day long. And so if you look at this, I call it the spaghetti test. I mean, Amy, were you taught to test the doneness of spaghetti this way?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, it must be a my world thing. But where the way you test spaghetti is you throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. Because if it's cooked enough, it has enough starch, it just sticks to the wall. I really thought this was something everybody knew. But every time
I've heard of it, but it's just not the way I was taught. My mom would have killed me if I threw it up on the wall or on the ceiling. I mean, heck no.
Well, come to think, my parents weren't around when I was doing that, so maybe I heard it and I just wanted to see if it worked. But I talk about the spaghetti test all day long. So if you need to think about, I do teach that to my kids, Christopher. That's what's really funny. My husband makes them taste it. I'm like, throw it up on the wall. Just wipe it off later. So I do teach my kids that because, it's kind of fun. But if you have to think of Kaizen, if you have to think about Albert Einstein, that scientist that gets a hypothesis and then is proving or disproving, or if you just need to think of it as a spaghetti test, I want you to kind of think about how you can bring this into your business to really perfect it. Okay. I told you I go to my networking group. One of the things that we have been testing and measuring a lot, 2 years, is my marketing message. It's not perfect, but it's getting closer. I mean, Amy, haven't you seen if you think about when we launched the website in 2014 to now, I think it's shifted quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, tremendously.
A lot clearer, a lot more focused in that, for sure. But at the beginning, I will say I sounded like everybody else, and that was okay for then.
You've grown a lot.
We've grown a lot, right? But that's only because we're always willing to improve. And that's one thing. I use my networking group, like I said, to test and measure. So I will stand up there and I will just say something I've never said to anybody out there, and I look for the reactions. I'm looking to how many head nods do I get? How many people do I get talking to each other about it? And then I also measure who comes up to me and says, "Oh my gosh, you must have been in my room last night." And then I go home and I write that stuff down. I do, because that's market research. That may be another good way to look at it. But I want you to get this idea that instead of ready, aim, fire, I want you to fire, ready, aim. I want you to do it first, see what sticks, and then improve on it. I think if we could get rid of the perfection need to be perfection, we would actually do a little bit better in there. So when we talk about the testing, here's the fun part. Because you probably don't have $50,000 to test an idea, because you probably don't have maybe even $20,000 to test an idea. Here's the hard part when it comes to testing on a small business level is you need some volume. You need some numbers to get, a statistical answer. One could be a fluke. You need repetition in there, but you'll see it doesn't take too terribly much, but you do need some volume so that you can get some good feedback from it. The other thing, and we talked about this last week with Justin, you got to look at the numbers. You've got to quantify things all day long, because otherwise you have no way of knowing what's working and what's not working. And when you're testing and measuring, don't change too many variables. Change one. So let's say you're locked into a print ad and you've got 12 months. Well, I'd be doing 12 months of testing, and I would just change one thing. And when I got a response, then that one thing would stay. And then I would change something else. And maybe that got a negative response. So I'd go back, or I'd change another element of it so that I'm refining the process, because I'm looking for that magic sauce, if you will. Every business has a magic sauce. Christopher has a magic sauce. Jaxer's on here, has a magical sauce. Amy has a magical sauce. I have a magical sauce. The problem is nobody's given us the darn recipe when we opened up the business. So Grandma didn't pass it down. It's not in some book somewhere. We have to kind of figure it out and get to the right place of it. So when you're testing and measuring, make sure that you're looking at one variable that you're testing, just like you would if you were conducting a scientific experiment. And gosh knows, every year I'm having to do science fair projects or guide. I'm not doing, you know me better than that. I don't do that. But guide science fair projects and have to teach the whole scientific method, to my kids all over again. Amy, isn't that a joy? Does it end? Are they doing it in middle school?
Not as much.
Yay, I'm excited about that. But you get the whole process. One variable. Don't overcomplicate things. All right, so kind of going into our next little bit here, I want to encourage you guys, if you've got questions, please give them to us. Shout them out, because I'll love to answer them and just help you out with that. I'm going to do a quick little social media share. So if you're on here live and you're having fun, do me a quick shout out and share for us, if you will. If you've listened to me, you know I cannot type and talk. So that's as good as it's going to get on my share. I'm sure if you're out on Twitter and you just saw that, you're like, what is that woman talking about? Well, good. Come over and check us out. But please let us know if you have any questions, and I'll make sure that we can answer them. I wanted to talk about this last concept about knowing the difference between testing and measuring and backing a bad idea. So on the flip side, if I've got somebody that won't test and measure, that's afraid of the failing portion or learning in their business, the kind of reverse is somebody that has made a commitment to an idea or to a product or to a marketing message or something like that, and it has proven not to be a good idea. And there's so many people that I know that are afraid to stop backing a bad idea. You have to stop backing bad ideas. If you were measuring that measure element, you would know it's time to walk away. And I have a specific kind of example I want to share here. But, I tell my clients all day long, especially my new clients that come on that don't have a whole lot of tracking that they've done. Usually they'll tell me, well, this is what works for me. I say, great, 30 days, prove it to me. That's all I want. I want proof. I want proof or disproof of it. Because while I hear you that this is what you think is working in your business, what I know is that's not always the truth. And so I deal in black and white when it comes to these things as much as we can. And sometimes, it's really gray. And I'm like, prove it or disprove it. Throw it out there, the spaghetti test again. Stick it or no stick. What are we trying to look for there? So when I love networking. Well, I don't personally, and it's not what I would do, but it's very effective in my business. So it is something that I do because it works for me. But I had a networking group in my first business that wasn't working at all. 6 months into it, I said, not happening. I put in good effort, right? I'm the first person, like 3 months in, I said, not working so well. I need to up my game. I need to make sure that I'm doing everything I should be doing to make this work. Another 3 months pass. I've done that effort. No results. In fact, I got told at this one networking meeting that I was too expensive from the person who should have been my number one referral. Yeah, wow. Amy's like, wow. I walked out. I quit. I left the group. All right. And when I was leaving the group, I got that typical, why are you leaving? You're throwing all this good money down the drain. Interesting concept here. I'm throwing their good money down the drain is basically what it is. Because in my brain, money is spent. Okay, my money is spent. Continuing forward in this marketing would require additional money from me. Okay. Now I have learned some things. I have learned that this is not where I need to be, that this is not a good fit. If I continue to back this good idea because I spent money on it, I would spend even more money on it and still not have it work. Okay. So the way that I phrased it to her was, the money's been spent. I'm not, I'm looking at my future dollars and not banking on this idea to produce a result, an investment. Justin Crane last week says he coaches his clients for 3 times return on investment. That's a pretty good number. That's a really good number. Breaking even means you probably learned a whole lot, and maybe you can maximize there. But go for it. We're looking for good return on investment. Okay. So you have to look at these things as much as black and white, and not tie them so much to an emotional, not be so concerned about what you did in the past, but a lot more of the future. Like if you're looking at, okay, this is a bad investment. It has not given me a return that it should have. Oh my gosh, last year we had, I got to tell you guys, we had it last year in my business. $12,000 down the drain. Like I could not have opened that drain any wider to allow the water to flow through it. That's what I felt like we did. It's flushed down the drain, $12,000. That's a large chunk of change. It was not so fun, was it, Amy? Amy was around. She knew I was not happy.
No.
But here's what's really interesting. I made those marketing choices based upon the prior year's results. But I changed a few things. I changed some things that I probably should not have changed. And that probably impacted the largest result of what worked and what didn't work in the business. Now, I could go back and do it again, but I'm not willing to invest $12,000 into something that doesn't give a return. And that makes sense. So you have to be so, I'd say, judicious. Discerning might be a really good word in what is going to work in your business. And, I try to give you the tools and the techniques to be able to do it from a number standpoint, try to give you the tools and techniques on how to do it from a strategy standpoint and everything in between. But you do have to look at how much are you saying yes in your business and how much are you saying no in your business. And no should be like the bigger component when it comes to how you're growing your business. You probably should say no more than you are, and be very discerning in that. All right. So I think, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover for today. Let me see. We've got Christopher out here. All right. So Christopher is saying, I agree, and I've found that most women fall in love with the products they offer and take rejection of a product personally. But that is also why you want a woman CEO to run your company. Here's the honest truth of it. Whether you're female or male, being able to bring both sides of the table to the boardroom, if it were, is really where you can succeed the most. And I think what it is that I do believe, when I was writing this, I thought about talking about intuition, because intuition is an important part of business. I think it's an important part of whether you're woman or girl or guy, male or female, is the gut feeling of going, this works, this doesn't work. I got that back. Here are my red flags. I can't tell you why. I have said that to people. I have said, you know what? Sounds like an amazing opportunity. Unfortunately, I just don't think that it's a good fit for us right now. And they'll go, well, why? And I'm like, you know what? I can't even tell you specific reasons why, but I know well enough to listen to my gut. And so I'm not going to do that. Or if I'm hesitant and I always I want to validate my gut, I will go back and do the same tools, the same techniques of going, okay, what's my return on investment? How likely am I on the scale of 1 to 10 to get this money back? How many clients do I need to get a return on my investment? How likely is that? And I look at this dollars and cents. I'm like, yeah, it's not really likely. My gut knew that, but I needed the proof on paper. So I think, to a certain extent, especially as you use tools more and more, you can rely a little more on intuition and then back up on things like that. But yeah, I will say I can be an impulsive buyer. Edwin, God love him, my older son, he is like the marketer's dream. I mean, every TV commercial is written with this child in mind. And we'd have TV on and something would say, such and such, buy such and such. You want this, la, la, la. I don't care what it is. The boy wants to buy it. And he comes back and like, even as a 3-year-old, he's like, Mama, we have to go to the store right now. And I was like, why? He's like, we just got to go. And, and I was like, well, why? And he's like, because they have this and it's so wonderful. And da, da, da. And I was like, we did not have TiVo at the time, but it's a case that he got really wrapped up in the marketing that would be done. I gotta let you know, I can fall by that wayside really easy. I can fall in love with the idea of something, with the promise of something, just as much as I think almost anyone can. But I rely on these going back, to the tools of, okay, how much? What would I need to return on investment? How likely? And I go through this every single time. So for me, and I will tell people all day long, I won't tell you yes today. I think I'm a yes, but I'm not going to commit to you today. I will call you back tomorrow, or I'll call you in 24 hours, or I'll call you in 48 hours. And then I call, live up to that loop. But that for me is my buffer on getting really wrapped up in falling in love with something without having that kind of more black and white way of looking at it. So I that's the kind of the double-edged sword. So if that's you and you get wrapped up and you're like, yes, maybe there's some guidance in there that I can share with you. Well, guys, I am not seeing too many questions today, and that's great, but we've had some fun conversations. Christopher, thank you for chiming in so much today. It makes a difference on the show, so I really appreciate that. But we are going to kind of wrap it up and get a mosey on. I know for one, my AC must be off in my hot house in the wonderful 105 heat index that we have in Dallas. So I'm going to go get this house cooling down. Amy, what do you think you would think the biggest takeaway was from today?
Oh, I can never hear often enough that failure should be a learning lesson, that we need to, that failure is part of business and part of, should be accepted and embraced more than beating yourself up for. So for me, I can never hear that message enough.
I think the same is true for me. I always have to think about that because I am a card-carrying member of Perfectionist Anonymous. I should start printing out cards that you could download from the website. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you're looking for the marketing quick fix, be sure to head to yourbizrules.com/marketing quick fix. Join us next week. We have scheduled Marsha B. Marsha B, I just have to tell you, her business card says total badass, which I love. I was like, could I get away with that? I don't know. And what you're going to love about this is that she is really, she helps couple create desire in the bedroom. She does sex education, and we're not going to talk about sex, but we are going to talk about it, creating desire in your business, and how you can actually get more of what you want in business. And it does start with desire. You have to desire something for all of this crap to be worth it, for all the fun, for all the downs, to be worth it in business, and for you to actually be successful in business. So that's what we're going to talk about next week with Marsha B here, Monday afternoon, 1:30 on Blab. So if you're listening to iTunes and you want to join us, you can just always hit yourbizrules.com/Blab, and that'll take you over here so you can subscribe. So Amy, thanks for hanging with us. Christopher, it was Jaxer. Thanks for hanging with us over here on Blab. And until then, we'll see you next week.